Okay, so we're going to discuss today the first topic with our Hematology 1, Hematology 2. So our Hematology 2 is just the continuation of our Hematology 1. Only that here in the Hematology 2, we'll be discussing all about your platelets, your blood vessels, your platelets, plus your coagulation factors. Okay, so here in the Hema 1, we have discussed all about the RBC and we have also WBC. And now here in the Hema 2, we'll be discussing all about the platelets and including the coagulation factors. Okay, so we'll still be using the same book with your Hema 1, Rodak pa din. Okay, so for today, we'll be discussing about the introduction about your coagulation or your clotting process, or you call it once your hemostasis. Okay, so basically, we have this one. So when speak about the coagulation or simply hemostasis, they are just the same. So it speaks about the different mechanism here of our body. We're able to prevent or to stop the bleeding process. Okay, so we divide your hemostasis or the clotting process into your primary, and we have also here the secondary. For the primary hemostasis, again, what's being involved on that would be the blood vessels and our platelets. Those are the mechanism on how your blood vessels and your platelets help to stop the bleeding process. The secondary hemostasis, on the other hand, it involves here your coagulation factors, how your coagulation factors are able to eventually stop the bleeding process. So, first we have here your primary hemostasis. Again, the primary hemostasis involves here the activation of your blood vessels and your platelets. As for your blood vessels, so your blood vessel pertains to your veins, to your capillaries, and even to your arteries. Okay, so that's where your blood try to flow within our blood vessels. Okay, so just in a case where you have a tissue injury, so nasugatan tayo, ano ang magiging response ni blood vessels natin in order for that to stop the bleeding process? So basically, your blood vessels, once you have a tissue injury, it undergo vasoconstriction. So pag sinabing vasoconstrict, ganyan, okay, lumiit, it try to decrease the size of the lumen. Okay, and that's to prevent further blood loss. Liliitan niya para wala masyadong mag-escape na mga blood because meron kang sugat. And what helps here your blood vessels to undergo vasoconstrict would be your serotonin. So later on, I'll be discussing kung saan galing si serotonin natin. And the second one, we have also here the platelets. Okay, so your platelets able to help here stop your bleeding process by performing the following functions. The platelet undergo here the platelet adhesion, the platelet activation, the platelet secretion, and you have also here the platelet aggregation. So I'll be discussing each of that one. Okay, so we discuss here the different function of your platelets and how we're able to help you stop the bleeding process. So again, your platelets perform the following functions. The first one, we have here the platelet adhesion. So when speak about the platelet adhesion, it simply adhere. For sabing adhere, it able to stick. Magbabind siya sa surface. Your surface could eventually be found in vivo. In vivo is inside your body. Okay, so in vivo here, it requires the following von Willebrand factor, and we have also kailangan siya sa platelet mismo ang kanyang receptor na GP1B95 complex. And it able to bind here in vivo to your collagen. So for example, ito ang blood vessels natin, tapos nasugatan ka dito. Once you have a tissue injury, your blood vessel contain this one collagen. So makikita sa ating blood vessel will be your collagen, and the collagen serve here as the binding site. Again, ang collagen natin ay ma-expose siya makikita ang collagen sa blood vessel natin if your blood vessels has been injured, if you have a tissue injury. And your platelets able to stick to that. So, kailangan niya ito, von Willebrand factor, at itong kanyang receptor. Kung itong platelet natin, dito mismo sa surface niya or sa kanyang membrane, makikita ang receptor. Specifically, the receptor needed for the platelet to undergo adhesion would be a GP1B 95 complex. Okay, that's your platelet adhesion. So, pag sinabing adhesion, adhere, magbabind lang siya to a surface. Pwede siya inside your body. Pag sinabing in vivo or inside your body, your platelet could stick to a collagen. Again, a collagen, lalabas lang siya pag you have your tissue injury. At makikita natin ang collagen sa ating exposed na or injured na blood vessel. In vitro naman, or outside your body, your platelets would have also the tendency to bind or to stick to your glass. Example for that, we have the glass surface. Like for example, if you are collecting the blood, you put that one in the ETA tube, so your platelets in your blood could have the tendency to stick to the surface. Pwede siya mag-stick sa ating glass surface, which is your collection tube, or even in your needle, pwede siyang mag-stick. And still, pag nag-attach siya sa surface, you still call that one as your platelet adhesion. The next function of platelet, we have here the platelet activation. Pag sinabing platelet activation, is just nag-change siya ng morphology niya or shape. And we have also the chemical changes. So that's still your platelet activation. When your platelet is doing the following function, these are simultaneous. Okay? The next function, the platelet, we have here the platelet secretion. Pag sinabing platelet secretion, is just your platelet try to release the content of its granules. Secrete, excrete, parang ganun, na-release niya. Anyway, again, it try to secrete the content of its granules because the content of the granules of the platelets contains those substances which are also needed para magkaroon tayo ng clotting process. Okay, so we have here some of the content of the granules, although the next topic we have that a detailed discussion about this one. But we could classify the platelet granules here as either alpha granules or could also have the dense granules. Although you could have another granules, the lysosomal granules or the lysosomes. Okay, the alpha granules, on the other hand, contains the following. So you could have the platelet factor 4, the von Willebrand factor, your platelet-derived growth factor, your beta-thromboglobulin, thrombospondin. Again, there are so many other content, so I'll just mention that one in the next topic. The dense granules, on the other hand, contains the following. So it contains the calcium, the magnesium, these are cations, because again, those are your positively charged. Ang mga ito, calcium, magnesium, these are needed para mag-activate ng coagulation factors natin. The second one, content ng dense niya, we have serotonin. Serotonin is needed for your blood vessel to undergo vasoconstriction. And we have also here the ADP. Ang ADP naman, ito ay kailangan para mag-undergo siya ng platelet aggregation. So what is a platelet aggregation? Platelet aggregation is a process performed by your platelets. It is described here as the process whereby your platelet try to bind to one another. Pag nag-bind lang platelets natin sa surface, we call that one adhesion. Pero pag nag-stick sila sa isa't isa, platelet, another platelet, you call it your platelet aggregation. Ano naman kailangan ng platelet natin to undergo aggregation? Number 1, kailangan niya ng ADP. Saan galing ang ADP niya? Sa kanyang dense granules. Another one, it could bind here through your fibrinogen. Ito ang kanyang receptor na kailangan, GP2B3A. Again, the GP2B3A, ito ang kanyang receptor sa kanyang membrane. Makikita ito sa membrane ni platelets para it will help here in it's being utilized by the platelet in order for that to bind to one another to undergo here the platelet aggregation process. Again, ang receptor niya para mag-bind to a surface is your GP1B95 complex. Para makapag-bind siya sa collagen natin to undergo the platelet adhesion. Pero, pag mag-undergo ng platelet aggregation, ang ginagamit niya na kanyang receptor is your GP2B3A para makapag-bind siya sa fibrinogen natin para mag-bind, it will enable it to bind to one another ng mga platelets. And then, kailangan pa rin niya ng ADP, and again, the ATP ay galing siya sa kanyang dense granules. Okay, so the activation of your primary hemostasis is involved in the interaction of your blood vessels or platelet and up with the formation of your primary platelet plug. But we consider here the primary platelet plug as unstable. Hindi siya ganun ka-effective to really help you stop the bleeding process. And therefore, you need also to activate your coagulation factors para medyo stable ang ating fibrin, para mas stable ang ating clot formation. Speaking about the coagulation factors, so coagulation factors, there are approximately, I think, 17 of that. Okay, so they are given here a Roman numeral classification number and with their corresponding names. So you need to memorize each of this one. So mentioning here, the factor 1 is your fibrinogen. The factor 2 is your tissue. The factor 2 is your tissue factor. The factor 2 is your prothrombin. The factor 3 is your tissue factor or your tissue thromboplastin. The factor 4 is your calcium. The factor 5 is your labile factor. Other name for that is your proaccelerin. Factor 6, wala tayong factor 6 kasi they were able to identify that the factor 6 is just the activated form ni factor 5. So parang factor 5 lang din siya. And later on, since activated form lang siya ni factor 5, they try to remove that one in their classification, and they have not able to replace it with a new coagulation factor classification. Kaya wala tayong factor 6 at the moment. The factor 7 is your stable factor. Other name for that is your proconvertin. The factor 8 is your anti-hemophilic factor A or your von Willebrand factor, anti-hemophilic factor A von Willebrand factor complex. The factor 9 is your anti-hemophilic factor B. Other name for that is your PTC, plasma thromboplastin component. Other name for that is your Christmas factor. Okay, the factor 10 is your Stewart-Power factor. And we have also the factor 11 is your anti-hemophilic factor C, that's your PTA, plasma thromboplastin antecedent. Factor 12 is your H-man or your glass factor or your contact factor. And then we have also here the factor 13, we have your fibrin stabilizing factor or your Lacheloran factor. Another one, we have also here your prekallikrein. Other name for that is your Flesser's factor. Then we have also your high molecular weight kininogen. Other name for that is your Williams, your Flojak, and we have also here your Fitzgerald factor. Okay, para ma-activate ang ating coagulation factors, may tinatawag tayo na activation pathway. So we have here activation pathway for the intrinsic pathway nasa loob. Okay, so that's your pag-start ka ng factor 12, so that's your H-man contact class factor. Once activated, it will activate your factor 11, factor 9, and then we have factor 8. And proceed with this one with a common pathway, factor 10, 5, 2, 1. Extrinsic pathway activation that enhance start with the factor 7, factor 3, that will proceed here with the factor 10, 5, 2, 1, which is your common pathway. Okay, the activation of your coagulation factors, again, end up with the activation of your common pathway. Okay, your common pathway again includes your factor 10, 5, 2, 1. So always we'll stop here with the formation of your clot, okay, fibrin clot by the activation of your factor 1. Again, your factor 1 is your fibrinogen. For the fibrinogen to form here, the fibrin clot, so fibrinogen, fibrin clot, kailangan natin ng thrombin. So once the entire coagulation factors here are activated, then what you have here, the fibrin clot. And para ma-convert ang ating fibrinogen, which is ang pinaka-end natin, to your fibrin clot, you are needing the thrombin. Okay, what you have here on the activation of your coagulation factors would be the formation of your fibrin clot. And we consider this one as much stable na clot compared with your platelet plug in your primary hemostasis. But then again, the activation ng clotting process here from your primary hemostasis, again, pag primary, ang involved natin ay platelets, saka blood vessels natin. Again, your platelets undergo vasoconstriction, the platelets undergo those function, adhesion, activation, secretion, and we have your aggregation. And then with the help of your activation of your coagulation factors, you're able to form here the clot formation. It will able to help here to stop the bleeding process. But remember that activation of your primary and secondary hemostasis are being done or occurring simultaneously and they are overlapping with one another para magkaroon tayo ng stable na clot formation. Okay, now we proceed here with the next. So we have here the 4 components of coagulation as a summary of that. Again, what are involved here in the clotting process? If you have a tissue injury, number 1, we have the primary hemostasis. I guess includes your blood vessels, your platelets. And then we have the secondary hemostasis, which involves your coagulation factors. But then again, the entire process of the clotting and the bleeding process here, if you have, for example, a tissue injury, do not stop in just the formation of the clot. Hindi lang siya up to the clotting process. It should expand in your fibrinolysis. Kasi sinabing fibrinolysis, a process whereby you try to dissolve your fibrin clot. Okay, what do you mean by that one? So, again, pag may sugat tayo, your coagulation factors, your platelets and blood vessels help to stop the bleeding. Kasi may tissue injury tayo, di ba? So may sugat ka, kailangan mag-stop ang bleeding. That's why your coagulation or clotting process is activated. Once na-activate ang ating coagulation and clotting process, the next thing you're going to do here is that you need to dissolve the clot. Okay, by the process you call as your fibrinolysis. Okay, how we're going to dissolve the clot? So we have your fibrin clot. So ito kanina, fibrin clot, i-dissolve natin siya. Para dissolve ang ating fibrin clot, what you have are fibrin degradation products. Your fibrin degradation products includes the following: X fragment, Y fragment, and D-dimer. Again, those are your fibrin degradation products. Para ma-dissolve ang ating fibrin clot, what you are needing here will be your plasmin. Okay, so bakit ulit kailangan natin i-dissolve ang clot? Because normally, kung itong blood vessels natin, dapat walang nakabara doon na clot. Pag may nakabara na clot, like nasa brain natin, magkakaroon ng stroke ang patient. Pag may nakabara na clot, like in your heart, magkakaroon ng myocardial infarction. And dapat walang nakabara in order for you to have a normal flow of the blood. That's why you expand your coagulation clotting process with your fibrinolysis. Here. And what you're needing for that would be your plasmin. Okay, so we have here, you should have the balance of the bleeding in the clotting process. Again, if you have bleeding, then your body's mechanism here to stop the bleeding process. That's why na-activate ang primary saka secondary hemostasis natin. But then again, dapat normal lang siya or balance lang siya. Like, if you have excessive bleeding, bakit ka nagkaroon ng excessive na bleeding? Kasi hindi na-activate ang ating primary hemostasis and secondary hemostasis. Ang tendency ay mamamatay ang patient because of excessive na bleeding. On the other hand naman, pag excessive clotting, hindi mo na-dissolve ang clot kasi wala kang plasmin or walang mechanism here of your plasmin or dissolution the clot. Ano mangyari? So magkaroon ng clotted na blood sa ating blood vessels. Thus, your thrombus formation, magkakaroon ng bara at hindi magpa-flow ang blood natin. So, eventually, ang mangyari ay magkakaroon ka ng stroke, myocardial infarction, and many others.